Right. Welcome to the Celebration Pro podcast. Once again, I'm so excited to have Jasmine Smith here with us today. She is a copywriter for wedding pros, just like you, and she specializes in crafting copy that is equal parts personality and persuasion driven. And with this recipe, wedding pros can show up as their authentic selves and book those dream projects we love. Jasmine is all about the wedding pros feeling proud to share their website with potential clients, and she does this by helping businesses to stand out and sell online through strategic copy that relates and resonates with their ideal clients. She's worked with some of America's top wedding pros and event planners, and she, like me, and probably you, loves a big celebration. Jasmine, we are so excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, so I think like the best way to start is from the beginning, and it's so important to kind of understand the evolution of somebody's passion. So I'm especially interested in hearing yours. Can you share with us how it kind of all started and how you've become the copywriter that you are today?
Yeah, of course. No, I totally agree. I love hearing like people's origin stories, so I'm happy to share. I always describe copywriting as kind of my dream job that I never knew existed. So I really did just fall into this world. And it was at the beginning of the pandemic. So I was actually studying for my degree. So I was an English major, I think is what you guys call it, but like I did an English degree.
Sure.
And I also worked in retail. I worked in various kind of luxury high-end stores. I always did throughout my teens, throughout my education. And at the same time, I was, studying for my degree, writing for various newspapers and magazines, and then everything just came to a stop. And I really wanted to find a way where I could, keep making money, and B, also channel my passion, for still had my degree, but I wasn't getting that kind of immersive educational part where I was going in because it was all online. I mean, ironic since I later took up an online career, but anyway, and to keep writing. So obviously all of those newspapers and magazines and things I was doing alongside just completely stopped. So I went online and I just looked, how can I keep writing? How do people make money online? Basically, if I'm really honest, that's what it came down to. And I found this world of copywriting and SEO, and I just became completely obsessed. I remember just talking to everyone about it. I was probably having those like Zoom parties with people and telling them all this crazy stuff I'd been learning. And then from there, it just kind of took off. So I started on various freelancing platforms. I worked under an agency for a little while, and then ultimately I just decided I can do this myself. And then started my business. And then about a year and a half ago, I decided to niche down into wedding and events. And that really came from working with a selection of businesses in that space, which I just completely loved. Majority over in the States where wedding and events are such a big thing. Obviously they are in the UK as well, but not to the kind of like extent they are, and the glamour and the glitz, and
we can get pretty extravagant.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just obsessed with it. And I think maybe because where I'm sat at home all day writing, it just really appealed to me. I wanted to kind of live in that world through copy, through working with people, through this passion that I'd found. And that's how I got where I am now.
Sure, I love that. And you had just mentioned how it was a profession that you didn't know existed. And I think that a lot of times, I'm sure this extends outside of the wedding world, but from the pros that I've talked to, none of us really knew that what we did was an actual profession that you could do full time. Like I had no idea that there was even a degree for event management. And then when I found that out, I was like, oh, light bulb moment. Now I know what I'm supposed to do in life. So yeah,
that's exactly what it felt like for me, because obviously I had that experience with sales in the luxury retail background. I loved writing so much, and I always had. Obviously, I was studying for an English degree, but everyone always says, there's no future in writing, and it felt like I'd been lied to when I came across this whole world online. And yeah, I just had no idea it existed, and obviously, I was just completely obsessed. I feel so lucky to have found it now.
Yeah, it's like the best kept secret, but you're working towards something that you love. Like it all just ends up falling together. And I'm glad it happened
it
for
all
you.
makes
That's
sense.
awesome. Very cool. Well, so let's get into some of your wisdom for our listeners. So our second question here is, before a wedding pro jumps into the creation of copy, or you know what, I'm going to back it up a little bit more. I think I kind of put the cart before the horse. So what is copy exactly and where is it used?
Yeah, of course. So the way I describe copy on a really basic level is literally just the words you use to connect and sell your services and products. And you'll see copy everywhere. I think once you learn what copy is, you're out on like the train or walking down the street and you see ads with words on, that's copy. There is literally copy on every single corner. Anything you've bought online, which has kind of a sales page, social media captions, copy is literally everywhere. It truly is the foundation of all your branding and marketing efforts.
Perfect. I think that's a great definition. So before Wedding Pro jumps into creating their own copy, are there any necessary mind shifts that you found along the way that can help them build confidence around like their brand messaging and the words that they're putting out in the world?
Yeah, of course. I think the main thing I'm seeing with wedding pros, wedding and event pros, is they put so much pressure on themselves around writing copy. I think they're really tackling it as like a difficult to-do list on the list, which is understandable because it can seem really intimidating. But ultimately, in a space driven by so much connection and empathy and emotion, I think we really need to kind of strip that pressure back and look at it as something more fun and formal. The best copy, I think, is a true reflection of you. So don't go into it thinking you need to be something you're not. Just go into it open-minded, as if you're having a conversation with someone. What would that sound like? What would you be telling them? Ultimately, that's what your copy should be. It shouldn't be really, obviously there are certain structures and things that you need to do, but don't kind of put so much constraint on it being so perfect and polished. It's an evolution. It will change over time. It doesn't have to be a one and done thing. Your first draft isn't what you have to put out there. So definitely just eliminate that pressure first of all. And I also think just spending some time focusing on your brand before you even start the writing process. So thinking about your mission, why you do this, what you want to do, the message you want to get across, and who you're speaking to. It makes it so much easier in terms of direction when you actually start that writing process. You're not suddenly looking at this blank Google Doc. You have an idea of what you want to say and who you're speaking to. I think that makes it a lot less intimidating as well.
I think that is so true. And so often do I find wedding pros and creative entrepreneurs getting more lost in the colors and the logo and that type of thing, those type of elements of their brand. And they forget that the thing that's going to attract people the most are the conversations and the words, that they're putting out, because that's really what people are going to resonate with. It's that storytelling moment. And yeah, this is exactly where they need to start, rather than be worried if their website is perfect or if everything, it is evolving. If you saw my website that I had when I first started as a wedding planner, you'd probably giggle.
No,
And,
same. I sometimes have when Google or something shows your memories, and I have like pictures of my website evolving over the years. And when you look back on it, it is embarrassing, but it's also really humbling to see how things do change. And when you're looking at a perfectly polished website that maybe your competitors put out there, you're not seeing all of the versions that went before. You're not seeing, how they got to that point. So I think remembering that everything is a journey and it will evolve can be really comforting in those moments when you're thinking, oh no, I need to write copy and it needs to be perfect and it needs to do everything all at once. It's just not the case.
Right. You have to go through the creative process from starting off messy to getting it to that polished, more authentic you. And when you don't do that, that's when you're not being authentic. That's when you're copying what somebody else is typically doing, is what I see anyways in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Awesome. Okay, so one of the topics that you had mentioned, which I thought was lovely and kind of follows our conversation here, is the difference between a pretty website and actually an effective website. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about how they can implement that idea into their own work?
Yeah, of course. I love this topic so much because it is something we see in this industry specifically, because things are very visual. Wedding and event planners are by nature visual people. They're creating beautiful things. So it's only natural to be attracted to pretty websites. And I am too. I think we all are. Visuals are such an important part of building your brand and, getting yourself out there. But I think what people are missing what people are overlooking is the value of copy. So the way I always like to look at it is to think, imagine that your business was like a person. So I might love someone's dress over there. I love your business's dress. They look really great, but that doesn't really mean anything until I've started speaking to you, until I've talked to you about things we have in common. We've built up a relationship. Only then does that really matter, because before it's all very surface level. I'm just appreciating the way you look. But, you know, I like the way a lot of people look. I really need to speak to you to know that we're on the same page, that we're connecting, that you're my person and you're going to solve these problems I have. So I do think that the two go together, but investing in just a pretty design is almost like a waste of your investment, because people are going to be looking at it, but then they're not going that step further. They're not connecting with you on a personal level, and ultimately that connection is what leads you to that conversion.
And that's especially important in the wedding industry. I call it the best friend factor. If you're not willing to get on that level with your client, it's such an emotional investment when it comes to weddings that you could very easily lose a client by not meeting them where they're at.
Mm-hmm. No, I 100% agree. I think where there's so much trust needed, you really need to be like putting your hand out and saying, this is who I am. I'm here for you. You know, you can trust me. Because it's, especially for weddings, you know, that's the most important day of your life, or one of them. And you want people to trust you with that. And the pretty visuals are great, but ultimately they need to know you. They need to know who you are to build that trust.
Yep, absolutely. And then something else, when I was kind of looking through your website and social media, I think I came across a post is where it started. And this is a great example of how Jasmine's copy pulled me in and how it all works. So you had posted to stop putting your name as a header on your About Me page. And then I went to your website and I'm like, oh my gosh, you don't do that. And but I know who you are. Like, I knew who you were coming to the website. And I was like, I need to check mine. So I went on my website. I don't even have an About Me page, didn't even realize it. And luckily, I don't have any headers that have my name, but it was like this, oh, let me go check and make sure that I'm not missing this one piece. So I thought that was really interesting. Can you, and I know this is off the cuff, but can you speak to that on why it's more important to maybe share the value you can offer rather than have it be all about you?
Yeah, of course. So ultimately what that came from is, if you go on a lot of about pages, you do see a header. So like the first line is, you know, hi, I'm Jasmine or whatever, which is great because, you know, you want to introduce yourself, you want to be friendly, you want people to remember who you are. But the way I look at that is, so I think the statistic is something like 80% of people don't read below the header. So if your header says your name, that's all you're telling people. And that is such a waste of your prime real estate, when you could be telling them in that line something that's more relevant to them. So, you know, how you're going to solve their problem, you know, different points of relatability, positioning your message. You know, there's just so many other things that you could be using in that space instead of your name. So while I do think it's great to be personable, and I think it does say somewhere on my website, like, hey, I'm Jasmine or whatever, I just worry about people having that big, bold header and it just going to waste. So that's ultimately where that stems from. And sorry, what was the other half of the question?
I don't remember, but that's okay. That was perfect. That was exactly what I was looking for. It's and I think you did answer it. It's having your value include, or having your header include value rather than kind of wasting that real estate on your business, on your
yeah. So whether you're like highlighting a pain point or fulfilling a desire, you know, talking about something that motivates them, I just think, however, than just having your name. And another thing is, if you go on a lot of Wedding Pros, Event Pro websites, you'll see the same thing. So, you know, the hey or welcome and the name. Just by changing that, you're going to stand out so much, because if they've got 5 tabs open and that's all the same header, and then suddenly you're not saying, hey, it's me. You're saying, hey, this is how I help you. This is how I serve you. This is how I'm credible. Automatically, you're going to stand out as someone that has their best interests at heart and is speaking to them. And all of this might seem a bit like, do people really think this much? But I think a lot of it is subconscious. You know, we land on websites and you might not think you're thinking much, but there's going to be one that leaves an impression, and you've really got to kind of pick out why that is.
Yeah. Oh, this is gold. I love it. They say it's like now your brain wants new information every 2 seconds. And I think that kind of nods to that in a way where if you see the same thing over and over again, if you see somebody else doing something differently, that's going to be what catches your attention. Yeah. I love it. Beautiful. Okay. Well, let's get into some fun Q&A just to get to know you a little bit better. What are you currently reading and or listening to?
Okay, so I'm a big fiction lover. As much as I love like a marketing or self-help book, I am still the English grad at heart. So I always have a fiction book on the go. And I'm actually currently reading a novel called All the Birds in the Sky. And it's a bit of a rogue one for me because I'm very much kind of like a rom-com, light-hearted reader. After doing my degree where I was just like Jane Austen every week and like massive classics, I was like, I need something light-hearted. But this is actually a sci-fi novel, which is quite different for me. I'm not sure I'm going to be steering in that direction anymore, but it's nice, refreshing. It changes it up a bit.
Yeah, I find that you have to at least drip those a little bit in between all of the professional and personal development because it gets real heavy sometimes.
It's so true. When I was at university or college, I used to have to like read a classic, then like read like a fluffy, nice, light-hearted book, and then read a classic again, just so I could like break up it. And my brain wasn't like exhausted.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, if we were meeting up in 1 year, maybe over in the UK, that would be fun. To pop a bottle of champagne, what would we be celebrating?
I would love that, but I'd have to say maybe come like in a couple months later because it's just raining constantly all the time here. Everyone
Twist my arm.
Most of the people I work with are in America, and I'm always like, what's the weather like over there? Because obviously you have such diverse climates. And I'm always like, yeah, it's just raining here. It's always raining here. It's always grey. But no, I love this question. This year I actually I didn't give myself any big goals or anything like that. I really just want to focus on more of the same. So, you know, I want to be working with incredible clients. I want to be making connections, enjoying life while building my business. Everything that I started doing last year, I just want to continue that and just love the journey. So that's really what I'd like to be celebrating, just more of the good stuff continuing.
I love it. Listeners, that is your permission slip. If you're not ready to grow into something new, it's okay to do more of the same. That's totally part of the journey too. So awesome. Well, Jasmine, where can our listeners find you? And if you do have anything coming up that you want to share, feel free.
Amazing. You can find me at copycatstudios.co or at copycatstudios_ on Instagram. I honestly don't have anything big coming up, as I said, just more of the same stuff. But yeah, if you find me on Instagram or anything, if you have any questions, I would love to chat. And you can find that post that you were talking about with the about page headers, and drop me a DM if you're like, what else am I meant to put apart from my name?
What else are we missing?
Yeah. But yeah.
I love it. Well, I think more of the same is what everyone needs because you are putting out some really great content. I think that post is within your 9 grid. So if you go over there, you'll see it. Jasmine, thank you. This was so lovely. Thank you what time is it where you are?
It's almost 2:30.
Okay. So, thank you so much for taking the time in the middle of your day to join us. And hopefully, I think that we'll probably be seeing you on the show again in the near future. So have a beautiful day. And thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I would love that.